Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to Catalyst for Change. When people hear the word karma, they often think of fate, destiny, punishment. Some even associate subconsciously the aspect of revenge. Definitely, they think of past lives. And by and large, when the word karma is used, most people think of it as what others have done to them. And very often people get quite surprised when I use the term karma with self. They are unable to understand how we can create karma with our own self. But very often, the deepest karma that we carry, which I see on such a regular basis when I am creating the soul blueprints for people, the deepest karma that we carry is karma with ourselves. Now, we all know, at least those of us who are present here listening to this conversation, we know that karma is not about punishment, and it's certainly not about revenge. Karma actually is nothing else but energy in motion. When a certain energy follows a certain pathway and continues to follow that pathway, a karmic pattern or a karmic template or a karmic consciousness, all of these terms mean about the same thing. This is formed, whether you call it a template, whether you call it a karmic pattern, whether you call it karmic consciousness. So let's understand this clearly. When the same energy follows the same pathway over and over again, it creates a pattern or a template or a consciousness. Now, that energy in motion can have two or more parties to it. But it doesn't always need two parties or more than two parties. The energy in motion can also be an energy released and emitted by one person alone. And when there is no other person at the other end, that energy in motion that follows that pathway and creates that consciousness, that is known as karma with self. There are certain things that we do, that we say, that we feel, and that we think about ourselves. And if this is a one-off incident, because that energy in motion is not following the same pathway over and over again, there is no karma caused. But if there is the same thought, that crosses our minds, or the same kind of words that we say about ourselves, and we do this repeatedly, then the energy of those thoughts, the energy of those words, those actions, those feelings follows one pathway. And that pathway is deepened every time we speak in that way, we think in that way, we feel in that way. And that deepening pathway is the karmic state of consciousness, or is the karmic pattern. So what is important to understand, therefore, is what are these patterns? And of course, there are innumerable patterns, but I have shortlisted a few which I have seen in the course of my work over 3 decades. I have seen these occurring repeatedly. Now, the way you may follow that pattern and the way I may follow that pattern, the apparent outward manifestation may be different. But the underlying state of consciousness, which actually creates the pattern, that remains the same. So as we go along, you'll understand this better. The first one which I have written down, and I have written it down as point number 1, is because it is so all-pervading. In some way or the other, all of us fall under the trap of this karmic state of consciousness. And that is the state of self-abandonment. As I said, you may do it in a way that is different from mine. So let's look at a few of those examples. There are some of us who ignore our intuition. And they will say things like, this is just a fabrication of my mind. This cannot be true. It has no relevance in real life. When we undermine, undervalue the voice of our soul, because our intuition is really nothing else but the voice of our soul. And when we sneer at it, when we disbelieve it, when we refuse to give it the cognizance that it deserves, we are abandoning the most authentic part of ourselves. The second way we abandon ourselves is when we suppress our own needs. Now, it is a given that there are certain situations and events in our lives when we are asked to step out of ourselves, we are asked to rise above our own needs and focus upon the need of someone whose need is far greater than yours in that moment or in that situation. That is a given. And that one of situation does not cause any karma. But when this becomes an automatic response to a situation, when this becomes a habit that we form, where We are asked about what we would like, and instead of honestly, without any shame, without any hesitation, saying, these are my needs, we pretend that our needs don't exist. We pretend that we are okay to follow the crowd. We pretend that your need is far greater than mine. Now, why am I using the word pretend? You're not doing it in order to create some opinion or to wear a mask of falsehood. No. But I'm using the word pretend specifically for this reason. Your inner being, even as you say the words, is very aware that this is not your full truth. For example, if I ask you, would you prefer A or B? And you do prefer A, but you see that I prefer B, and for whatever reason best known to you, you then say, I'll go with B. Or you might say, whatever you like. Even as you're saying those words, your inner being is aware that your true preference is A. And that's why the word pretend. And when we do this, and we do this repeatedly, this is one of the strongest ways, easiest way, and unfortunately, the most common way that we create the karma of self-abandonment. And if we take this to a little further distance, not only do we suppress our needs and our desires in our speech or in our preferences, we continue to stay on in situations, in relationships, in places, in jobs that are unhappy, where we are more unhappy than we are happy, where there is greater dysfunctionality than there is healthy interaction. But we continue to stay on. Now, what are the explanations we give ourselves? I can't go because children, money, I don't have a home, I won't get another job, I'm scared to leave this. What if I don't get something else? What will the world think if I move away? There are so many reasons we give ourselves, but they are not reasons at all. They are excuses that we are making because we are scared to say, this is my truth and I choose to live by it. So whether it is a valid reason or not, and I really want you to hear this well, whether it is a valid reason or not, if the pattern is continually repeated, you are creating the karma of self-abandonment. Another way we do this is constantly choosing others over ourselves. Now, I am not advocating selfishness or self-centeredness, not at all. What I am saying is, you may not consider yourself more important than others, but don't consider yourself less important. Know that you are as important as everyone else, that you are as special, that you are as unique, that just as every single person on earth is a divine gift to our planet, so are you. But when you undermine yourself, when you think less of yourself, when you begin to shrink in situations because you want to please someone else, or you want someone else to be comfortable, you are abandoning yourself. I know of a person who is so evolved. I love his energy. But when he is with his wife, when he is with his children, I see a very different side of him. A side that is meek and mild and doesn't wish to speak. And I often wonder, because I don't know what happens behind closed doors of a family, I often wonder what makes this wonderful human being, who, when I speak to one-on-one, is entirely different from the man I see in a situation where he is surrounded by his wife and children. So these are ways in which we choose to undermine ourselves. What happens when we do this? What happens when we continually abandon ourselves? One thing that happens immediately is resentment. You begin to resent not only yourself, you begin to resent the person who you are telling yourself is forcing you to be this way. The truth is, no one is forcing anyone to be in a certain way. But we make ourselves believe that he is the cause, she is the cause, they are the cause. So resentment builds up. And the more resentment there is within us, the more spiritual drainage there is. The draining away of spiritual energy, the draining away of emotional energy. And there is a deep sense of energetic exhaustion. And sometimes I hear my clients say these words, I can't do it anymore. Those words are so meaningful because they tell me that this person has very little energy left now. Not only are you exhausted, but there is something deeper that takes place. You begin to lose your sense of self. Who am I? Your awareness of who you are, of your identity, is shaken. And when you have a very, very tenuous hold over your identity, you are unable to trust yourself. And that takes you into another loop, into another circle of self-abandonment, where you do not decide on anything without someone else's validation or approval or support, thus abandoning your own truth. The other way we create this karma of self is self-rejection. Of course, self-abandonment includes self-rejection. Of course it does. But self-rejection also has another aspect to it. And this aspect is the aspect of perfectionism, never allowing yourself to make a mistake, never allowing yourself to be wrong, and chastising yourself and chiding yourself tremendously when you do make a mistake, when you are wrong, because all of us will be wrong from time to time. And I so clearly am able to see this karmic pattern in myself. There was a time, maybe a decade ago, till that time, I was very, very angry at myself if I made a mistake, if I was anything less than perfect in my own eyes. In the eyes of others, it may still seem perfect. But if I did not see it as perfect, I used to be very upset. So this is a very good example of self-rejection. We reject the humanness of who we are. That as human beings, we are going to err from time to time. We're going to make mistakes. We're going to slip up. As human beings, we do not know everything. And so it's absolutely okay to say, I don't know the answer to this. But when these aspects of ourselves, when ignorance, let us say, or imperfection makes us annoyed with ourselves, it is an example of self-rejection. And there is another layer of self-rejection that is very closely linked to the perfection layer, and that is the layer of shame. Why am I angry with myself when I make a mistake? Because I am ashamed that I did that. So when I did a lot of work on this karmic template of mine, I realized that I had a lot of healing that I needed to do. I had a lot of unfinished lessons that I needed to learn regarding perfectionism and shame. Of course, shame can also take on different aspects, like being ashamed of your body, let us say. I am too fat, I am too thin, I am too short, I am too tall, I don't like this aspect of my body, I don't like that aspect of my body, the constant comparison to others. That is also a huge aspect of shame leading to the karma of self-rejection. The third type of karma with self is the karma of emotional suppression. Not being able to honestly and healthily communicate what you are feeling. Let's look at those two words that I used, honestly and healthily. Everyone understands the honest part of it, where you feel a certain way, but you say that you're not feeling that you are in fact feeling exactly the opposite. You're feeling upset, but you say, I'm fine. I want to talk a little more on the healthy aspect of communication. Because when you shout or scream or are strident in your speech and you communicate your feelings in that manner, that is an unhealthy form of communication, leading to a very strong karma with self of emotional suppression. Now, you may wonder why I am calling this emotional suppression. When a person shouts, screams, raves and rants, and thus expresses their displeasure or their anger or their hurt, it means that they are unable to, again, for whatever reason best known to them, they are unable to connect to their true emotions and healthily, without any shame, reveal that this is what I am feeling. The shame that they feel and the inability to connect to their true emotions both join hands to bring out this total outburst. So an outburst is also a form of emotional suppression. And that also leads to the karma with self, just as silence does, where you do not speak of your emotions at all. Now, let me talk about this a little bit at length. There are times when we intelligently discern a situation and understand as intelligent human beings that if I am going to contradict or give my viewpoint or talk about my feelings right now, this person is going to get even more agitated or even more upset, and the situation will go south very quickly. So we make an intelligent, discerning choice to keep quiet. That is very different from emotional suppression. Very, very different. Because you are reading the room, you're understanding that this is the situation, you're understanding how you can best help the situation and not make it even worse. And you are taking a very well thought out, a well considered decision. Emotional suppression comes from an inner fear to voice your feelings, or an inner shame to voice your feelings. So one has to make a very clear-cut distinction. When there is emotional suppression, and if there is consistent emotional suppression, somewhere down the line, you will experience acute anxiety. And anxiety, panic attacks, etc., can become something that you repeatedly experience. So if you or anyone that you know is experiencing anxiety or repeated panic attacks, you may wish to explore this aspect of emotional suppression as well as whatever other areas you wish to explore. Not only is there anxiety, but for some people, there is emotional reactivity. Something can be an absolute small trigger, and there will be a disproportionate reaction to that small trigger. That also happens because there is a large amount of emotional suppression. The next one is the karma of living inauthentically. Living a life as though this world is a constant stage for you. So you stop living but you're continually performing. What should I be for this person to approve of me? And how should I change for this other person to approve of me? What should I say? How should I behave? How should I dress? All of these things make you a performer, an actor, not an authentic human being. So if you catch yourself living in order to create some kind of an image, if you catch yourself trying to please people all the time, if you catch yourself chasing validation and approval, then please know that you are creating a lot of karma with yourself because you are living inauthentically. And the last one I have put down here is the karma that we create through unconscious living. What does that mean? Judging things without taking a step back and allowing our spiritual awareness to come into play. The spiritual awareness that we are all one energy. How can we judge another? When we are with friends, let us say, and we indulge in gossip mongering, running other people down, we are creating two very strong karmas. One is we are creating a karma with that person whom we are talking of or whom we are judging. But we are creating an even stronger karma with ourselves. Because instead of recognizing our patterns and instead of being self-aware, instead of catching ourselves in time, we live unconsciously and continue to perpetuate the karmic patterns. Over the past month and a half, 2 months, I have been very cognizant of this karma that I create with myself, the karma of unconscious living, talking loosely, telling white lies, gossiping, judging others, not living the truth that I know, but opting to live out of the ego state. And this aspect, of course, all the aspects of self-karma need a lot of self-awareness, but this aspect, I truly believe, needs a moment-to-moment self-awareness, especially when we are with others. So if we are with old friends, we fall into that pattern that we have always followed with them over years. Or when we are with family members, we slip into those patterns we have had with them over years. Those are times when we have to be acutely self-aware. And if you find that a certain conversation is really tempting you to follow those patterns, either keep quiet or walk away. Do not allow yourself to be in that situation which is tempting you into those old patterns. Now, why is this talk on self-karma so important? Like any other karma, karma with self places a huge hurdle in the path of your spiritual growth. I think that is something we all know. What you may not know, but what you should know is this. Very often, and even more often in this year of 2026 and the years to come, the body is going to give you indication of these hurdles. And how is the body going to give you indication? Through pain, through dis-ease, through aches, numbness, tightness, burning sensation, acidity. So if you have been going through any of these, step back and ask your body, what are you attempting to draw my attention to? Because remember, till as long as the patterns exist, it means that there are unfinished lessons, lessons that you as a soul have chosen to learn, but lessons that you haven't learned yet. And when the crystalline network, when the crystalline energy within us and around us becomes so active as it is now, the physical aspects of ourselves, which means our bodies, and the physical aspects around us will start playing a very, very big role. So I've explained how the body talks to you. Let's understand how the physical aspects around us may talk to us. If you are desirous of buying something or of selling something, it just will not fructify. There could be problems in your home, like leakages, electrical problems, fires, whatever, breakages. And of course, all of us face this from time to time, but if you are facing them a little more often, and something in you is going, what is going on? Your intuition is telling you, don't write this off as an accident or an event. Address it. Address it within yourself. What am I not looking at? Which karmic template am I not understanding? Is it a karmic template with self, or is it a template that I am following with someone else? We give so much importance to karma, that someone does something to us, that we often forget that we are also doing a lot to others. We find it much easier to talk about what someone is doing to us. But we don't want to sit down there and tell ourselves honestly, if not others, how we are contributing to making a situation even uglier. You may be with a group of friends and you find it very easy to talk about XYZ who is bothering you. What about just once sitting with that same group of friends and saying, hey, you know, this is what I do, and that's what's making this situation worse. This is my problem. Awareness is the first step to healing anything. If there is no awareness, healing cannot take place. So let's become conscious of those patterns, those events, those experiences that continue to come into our lives in different forms. Because they are coming into our lives again and again in order to draw our attention to those unfinished lessons, to those patterns, to those karmic states of consciousness. And they are states of consciousness. They actually become your state of consciousness. And is that what you would like as a state of consciousness? Would you like shame as your state of consciousness? Would you like judgment as your state of consciousness? Would you like untruth as your state of consciousness? I know the answer is no. So if your answer truly is no, then you have to stop distracting yourself with other situations and by constantly pointing outwards, and take the time to turn inside and say, okay, I am going to look at this. I'm going to become aware of this. And when you become aware of this, please don't go down another rabbit hole of karma with self by judging yourself or by becoming ashamed of this. Friends, we all have these patterns. You do, I do. There is nothing to be ashamed of. This human part of us is a glorious part of us. It's a mysterious part, certainly sometimes, but it's wonderful. Undertake this awareness journey like an exciting adventure. What am I going to unearth about myself? What am I going to learn about myself? So take on this journey and take it on with a lot of love for yourself. If there is anything that you would like to ask or you want to share, we can spend just a few minutes doing that.
Yeah, I wanted to know the pattern of failing in exams.
Mm-hmm.
So, like giving 200% and still the child is not able to.
Binox, see, this is an extremely common pattern. And I have been a high school teacher for 32 years, so I really know that very well. This is that same kind of karma with self where you believe that you cannot do it. Now, this pattern could have started with one event or incident of personal failure, but what I really find very often when I am working with teenagers and children, I find that this pattern is something that they have taken in and made it a personal identity because a parent or a teacher or a sibling or friends or something have reiterated to them over and over again. You can't do math. You are never going to be. Why can't you remember this equation? How many times do you have to be told? We don't understand that our words are heard very differently by people. No parent, no teacher, no person wants to tell someone that you are useless. But sometimes the way we speak, the tone of voice, the words we use gives that very information that you are useless. You cannot do it. The child internalizes it when it is told to the child over and over again.
But how, as a parent, what you should do to make
no, this needs work with the child. This needs the child to be taken maybe to a good therapist who can help the child understand the internal hurdles that the child is going through.
Thank you.
What could we do about a pattern of being miserly and having a problem of sharing with others, as though we would lose something if we share? And you, Anna, a person who has that inability to share has probably, if not in this lifetime, then definitely in another lifetime, gone through some situation where survival was at stake, where there could have been acute poverty, there could have been acute scarcity, right? There could have been kind of displacement from home. All of these strike such a terror deep within the subconscious that the inner child says, if I hold on to everything I have, then all of that makes me strong, gives me a false sense of power. And so it's difficult to share. This again is something that, of course, needs to be taken help for, whether it's a spiritual mentor, a therapist, whoever. Thank you, Tarika. I'm glad you enjoyed this session.
Pattern of betrayals, Ellaeenah? Why it happens? Pattern of betrayals.
For what? For what? What are you referring to?
Betrayals in your life. Like, everybody gives you...
No, are you referring to Anna's question? Are you referring
No,
to...
this is my question.
So patterns of betrayal, you're talking
Yes.
about, again, Binoxi, instead of looking outward, where someone has betrayed us, let us understand that when the same pattern comes to us, when the same experiences comes to us, these soul contracts are very clearly telling us, hey, Binoxi, look within and understand that in many past experiences, in many past incarnations, you could have very well deceived, betrayed, cheated, gone into dishonesty. And now these soul contracts give you the mirrors. So instead of saying, this is what they have done to me, use things like Ho'oponopono and etc. to remove those karmic patterns from within yourself, because they are pointing out to something inside of you. Could we consciously try to start giving and rationally give, because we see the abundance that we have been blessed? Anna, I would urge you to do this. And this brings me to a lovely point. When you start doing something that your inner being is actually resisting because of some fear, because of some experience, please sit with that discomfort. Don't run away from discomfort. I see so many people stopping their inner child work, whether it's with me, whether it's with someone else. They stop their inner child work when they come to a point of great discomfort. And you want to escape that. You want to run away from that. Having done so much work and continually doing so much work on myself, I can assure you that when we work with ourselves, it definitely brings us to several points of acute discomfort, where we look at ourselves very, very honestly. But if you escape that, if you distract yourself from that, you will have lost a beautiful opportunity to grow. So, yes, please do this work. And it will be uncomfortable when you do it. Do it nevertheless. Just continually do it. And you will find that what you're doing is rewriting the inner story. So thank you, everyone. We shall meet again next Wednesday. See you and have a great week. Big, big hug.